Welcome to another edition of How to Fix It Yourself with Dave and Dave. This episode it has to do with the window runners that we've been working on. Actually, it's not the window runners, it's the window registers that make the windows go up and down for the BMW Series 7. Now, while we were working on that, of course, we had to take parts of the window apart, as you saw in that video. And because the plastic is really, really old, it cracked. And we could try and repair it, but instead we did get a replacement part. Now, I'm not going to go over all that we've done to get this one running. Trust me that it was a bit of a pain to put this through without cracking the plastic. We managed to get that done. This piece that we bought did not come with the actual screen material. It only came with the roller and no screen material. So we took that apart. Now what we're going to focus on today, and I guess we can show you that this is one we're not going to use from a different series that, you know, it's just a little screen that goes out and it latches so that it kind of cuts down on the amount of light that comes into the car. This happens to be in the passenger side on the in the rear. So when we were getting this all ready to go, I noticed that we had a little bit of a problem here in that this piece of plastic broke. What it's supposed to look like is it's supposed to have it has a channel here, and then it has another piece of plastic that sticks up here that holds this in place so that you can turn it, and it has a spring load. So this video is going to focus on doing this repair. So the first thing we need to do is we need to clean this up really, really well. And in some of our other videos, you'll remember that we did a super glue fix on these by using some paper to back it up to give it some strength. It's a real good way to go, and I recommend you look at that part of those videos where we show that. This one we're going to do a little bit different. Because it has a channel here right out next to it, we're going to do a super glue baking soda fill in here. And super glue and baking soda hardens up just hard as a rock. So this will really hold it in place really well. And so that's where we're going to proceed. So the first thing we're going to do is get things cleaned up and all ready to go. And then we'll kind of step on through it. So we're looking at this area right here. You can see from the shine that this is where it cracked. And this is the area that we're going to be backfilling with super glue and baking soda. We will super glue this piece in place just to hold it in place while this baking soda and super glue backing sets up. As you know from our other videos, I'm a real fan of using isopropyl alcohol for cleaning. And I like the 99.9, and you can get that off of Amazon. It'll be in our links below our video here that you can order it yourself. So we've soaked the first one down with the alcohol. Now we're just drying the alcohol out and making sure we're getting all the dirt out of there. Looking to make sure that the Q-tip comes out clean with no dirt on it. Things always glue up better when they're nice and clean. All right, I think we've got it. So now we'll give it a moment to make sure the rest of the alcohol evaporates. Then we'll glue that first piece in. So as before, I really like this Loctite Super Glue Ultra Gel for this kind of work. It really works very, very well. And so we're going to proceed with that. So we're going to put a little bit of the super glue on the piece we're gluing in, and then we'll glue that in, let it take a set. And then we'll proceed with the So you can see now the channel that will eventually be used for the one end of that screen. All right, so we're going to take a little break here and let that finish setting. I think it's in a good position. All right, so this is baking soda. Now, this is baking soda, not baking powder. So it's sodium bicarbonate. It's just any kind of baking soda. The stuff we've got just happens to be Kruger baking soda. So you'll want to make sure you get that. No, not necessarily from Kruger, but just so it says baking soda. Now, the trick to this is to start filling it in with the baking soda a little bit at a time. And now this stuff is going to dry really, really quick. So you want to make sure you get the baking soda in there and get a nice even layer. We're going to layer it just like we did with the paper, but this time we're going to do it with the baking soda. So once I get kind of a fairly even layer in there, okay, so now we're going to hit it with the glue. Come on. I hope I'm not running out of glue. Shoot. See, that's already hardened up already. It didn't come out quite as smooth as I thought, as I was hoping, but anyway, we've got that part in. So we're just going to keep layering it in. Actually, yeah, I'm running out of glue. It's not drying, dropping in there. Yeah, we'll make it work. Anyway, you can see how it's starting to build up in there. Get a little more glue up here. Yep. Got a little bit right there. You can see it's hard as a rock right now. We'll take a knife and kind of trim that out of there here in just a little bit, but we'll just kind of finish this off here. But you can see how it's backed up really nicely now. All right, I think we've got that as good as it needs to be. Just a touch out of there. I we kind of filled it in here, but like I say, we'll take a box cutter and kind of clean that out. In fact, if you want to hand me the box cutter, I'll do that right now. You can see how it carves out of there, that it's just really solid. Makes a real solid base. There we go. Want to make sure that sits in that groove real nicely. All right. Okay, so now we'll let that sit up for a little while. But you can see already that this is just really hard. I mean, it's just real dense, real hard. After it dries up here for another 15-20 minutes, it'll we'll blow out the excess, and we'll be ready to go with the next step. Now, you'll notice that with this part, again, it's not a part that we can use, but you'll notice how stiff it is. So we've got to pre-wind the rod when we put it into the channel. So with this one that we took out of here that didn't have the screen on it, you can see that what we need to do is we need to rotate this like that, so as that when it gets pulled out, it continues to rotate in that same direction, but then it rotates back, you know, because of the spring tension. So that's the next step that we have here. I guess before we go ahead and wind that, let's let you have a good look at the, you know, what the patch is. So this is basically, if you can get this part for a Series 7 BMW, you're talking about $400. And we salvaged this one for, you know, a few bucks, some super glue and some baking soda. So it wasn't too bad. Now I will warn you that we did have to fish this through the crack here. You need to be very careful. You can't spread this enough to get it through. If you're in a colder climate, I would warm it up before you do that, to make sure that you have the you know, you have the flexibility to be able to get it through, so you don't crack this piece as well. All right, so we're going to start winding this up. I'm going to go ahead and set this, let this come in all the way. Come on, in there at the bottom, just so it forms its own hold piece. So now we're going to start winding this. Notice the direction we're winding. You'll notice that it wants to go back, but we haven't got it anywhere close to being tight enough yet. So this is just something we've got to just work on to get it wound tight. With all the slipping off, I finally decided to make my own clamp pliers. So I just put some tape around here to hold it real tight. And then once we got it to the right spot, we just pushed it down into place. Of course, we already had the other end in place in that hole, and it just dropped right in. So now you can see that, you know, we'll have to straighten out the wires a little bit, but you can see that, you know, it now, you know, without straightening the wires, you know, now it's going to come all the way out and go all the way in just fine. So it's got a good tension to it, and it's in place. So the last thing we've got to do on this one is to hold it in place is there's a screw that goes right there. We'll put that screw in place, and then we'll go ahead and put the blocker piece, the channel piece, back in on top of it and glue that in place. So that'll drop in in there, and that'll kind of keep everything together. Okay, so this is the hold down screw that keeps that, it kind of locks that into place so that it doesn't come out. And it doesn't hold by much, and you don't want to put much tension on it just when it grabs, but it just barely catches the edge of that and just holds it in place. So that's what will keep it from popping out. All right, so now it's important to put this piece in place. And what this does is a couple of things, but the main thing it does is it gives it the right spread, because with all the spring tension, it tends to want to pull. So you want to get, it has little channels that each of those go in. You'll notice that it kind of spreads it out as they go in, and it holds all the pieces into the right place and gives it a little bit of rigidity. So we'll now run a little bead of glue to glue that in. I recommend you use some kind of a rubberized glue to glue that in and to hold it in place. But as you can see now, you know, we still have, again, we've got to straighten out the wires, but we still have fundamentally our, you know, our piece completely, well, we might have to straighten the wire sooner than later. There it goes. All right, so that's where we'll wrap up. We'll come back and show you the glue. I guess what I ought to show you, we're going to use this weather strip adhesive because it doesn't completely solidify hard. It solidifies into a kind of a rubbery solid, and that'll be the best way to hold this thing in place. So we'll go ahead and do that. By the way, you'll notice that this rubbery stuff, this particular one, is very, very sticky and sticks to just about everything. I found that parchment paper works very nice in terms of it not, the parchment paper, it won't stick to parchment paper. I'm going to do one more thing on this. I'm just not liking the way this one end sticks up all the time. So I'm going to just kind of re-arch this a little bit to get it just a little flatter, and so all the pieces kind of stay in place while this thing sets up and glues. See if we can't get that just a little bit. There, that sits in a little nicer. All right, gonna run a quick bead of glue across there on both sides. Now this glue does take a little while to dry, so we'll be setting this part aside and going back to working on the window regulators while this sets up, and then when we get ready to put it in place, it'll be good to go.